Hey Crime Junkies! What will prison be like for Bryan Kohberger? Bryan Kohberger has some strange habits. Bryan Kohberger's time behind bars has revealed habits that make even hardened inmates uneasy. These aren't just little quirks. They're behaviors that feel calculated, obsessive, and deeply unsettling. And they might just give us a window into what's going on inside his mind. Before we revisit the brutal case that put him in prison, let's take a closer look at the man he is now, the habits that haunt him, and how those habits could shape the rest of his life behind bars. Reports from inside the jail describe Kohberger's daily life as anything but ordinary. He's been called highly intelligent but annoying by an inmate who spent weeks in the cell next to him. That same inmate said Kohberger's routines were so rigid and so strange that they became impossible to ignore. Kohberger reportedly takes showers lasting 45 minutes to an hour. That's not a quick rinse, that's nearly an hour of running water, steam, and silence, every single day. And it wasn't just long showers. He washed his hands dozens of times a day, scrubbing until the skin turned red. These aren't signs of someone who's simply clean. These are rituals. Repetitive, compulsive acts that seem to have more to do with control than hygiene. Then there's his sleep, or rather, his lack of it. Nights for Kohberger don't mean lights out. Instead, he paces his cell until nearly dawn, moving, shifting, muttering to himself at times, and then collapsing for naps during the day. The inmate who shared a wall with him described it like living next to a restless ghost, never fully at peace, always on the move. One habit that might seem almost normal, but in this setting raises more questions, is the amount of time he spends video chatting with his mother. Hours every single day. He clings to those calls like they're a lifeline. But there was one call that showed something darker. Another inmate shouted, "You suck," at a sports player on TV. And Kohberger snapped. He thought the insult was aimed at him, or worse, his mom. He pressed his face against the bars, furious, demanding to know who the insult was for. It was the first and only time, according to that inmate, that Kohberger truly lost his calm. Psychologists have weighed in on these kinds of behaviors. Excessive hand washing, endless showers, hours of pacing. They all line up with symptoms of obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, or severe anxiety. Prison is already one of the most stressful environments anyone can be in. And for someone who might already have obsessive tendencies, that stress can supercharge the behaviors until they spiral out of control. But there's another side to these habits: dependency. His constant calls to his mother suggest he relies heavily on her for emotional support. Experts say when people are cut off from the world, they often cling to the one relationship that feels safe. But when those calls turn emotional, when a small insult triggers anger, it shows cracks in those emotional walls. Cracks that hint at more than just stress. They hint at a mind struggling to hold itself together. Now, these strange habits don't change what happened, but they make us wonder, are we seeing who Bryan Kohberger always was? Or are we watching him unravel slowly under the weight of guilt and isolation? The crimes that put him behind bars. In November 2022, the small town of Moscow, Idaho, was rocked to its core. 4 University of Idaho students, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, were brutally murdered in their off-campus home. The attack was so brutal, so personal, that it stunned the country. For weeks, fear gripped the town. Students fled campus. Parents called their kids, begging them to come home. Everyone wondered who could do something like this, and why. The investigation that followed became one of the most watched in the country. Police pieced together a trail of evidence: security footage, phone records, and ultimately DNA on a knife sheath left at the crime scene. That evidence led them to Bryan Kohberger, a 28-year-old criminology PhD student at Washington State University. The twist shocked the nation. The suspect wasn't a drifter or an outsider. He was someone studying the very subject he was accused of committing. He had attended lectures about criminal behavior, written papers on the minds of killers, and even posted surveys online asking ex-criminals about their thoughts and feelings. When Kohberger was arrested, the country wanted answers. Was this a student obsessed with crime who crossed a line? Or was there something darker? Prosecutors painted him as cold and calculating, someone who planned every step, from the drive to the victim's home, to turning off his phone to avoid being tracked, to slipping back across the state line before dawn. The trial ended with a guilty verdict. Kohberger was sentenced to life in prison for the murders of those 4 innocent students. What prison looks like for Bryan Kohberger. Now, with his sentence handed down, Kohberger's future is locked inside concrete walls. But prison isn't just about time served, it's about survival. Reports say Kohberger is currently kept under close watch. He's isolated not because he asked to be, but because the prison can't risk him being attacked by other inmates. High-profile killers often become targets, especially those convicted of killing young people. Life in isolation is its own punishment. He eats alone. He showers alone. His only real human contact is through guards or those long video calls to his mother. Some experts say that isolation could be fueling his obsessive habits, the hand washing, the pacing, the long showers, because he has no other outlet. But here's the thing, inmates talk, word spreads. And even if Kohberger stays protected, he'll always live with the reality that many people inside those walls know who he is, what he did, and would like nothing more than to make him pay again. What his habits reveal about his state of mind. When you look at Kohberger's behaviors, one thing becomes clear. This isn't just someone passing time. These are habits that reveal a lot about how he's coping, or not coping. Experts say his pacing at night could point to insomnia fueled by anxiety or guilt. The constant washing could be an attempt to cleanse something he feels can't be washed away. His dependence on his mother might be his last attempt to hold on to the version of himself that existed before the murders. But here's the haunting thought. Some inmates break down quickly under pressure. Some adjust and settle into prison life. Kohberger's habits suggest he's not settling. He's unraveling. Slowly, obsessively, one ritual at a time. And that leaves a bigger question. Will he ever come to terms with what he's done, or will the weight of those crimes eat away at him for the rest of his life? Before we wrap this up, let's talk about you, the audience. We've gone through Bryan Kohberger's strange habits, the endless showers, the constant hand washing, the pacing through the night, and the obsessive calls to his mother. But here's the real question. What do you think about all of this? Do you think these habits are just ways for him to pass the time in prison? Or do they show something much deeper? Maybe guilt, fear, or even a mind that's slowly coming apart? Imagine being the inmate in the cell next to him. Would hearing him pacing back and forth at 3 a.m. make you uncomfortable? What about the sound of running water for nearly an hour every single day? Would that kind of behavior feel unsettling to you? Or would you just chalk it up to, that's just Kohberger being Kohberger? Some of you might be wondering if this is simply a case of anxiety. Maybe he's just overwhelmed, clinging to routine to stay sane. But others might see it differently, as something almost creepy, like he's living in his own little world, detached from reality. Here's something to think about. Do you believe these habits are new since he's been locked up? Or do you think Bryan Kohberger was always like this? A man with strange, rigid routines even before the crimes? Because that's where the debate really gets interesting. If these habits started in prison, maybe it's the pressure and isolation breaking him down. But if they've always been there, then we're looking at someone who carried these odd behaviors into the outside world, and into the lives of the people he's now convicted of killing. Here's what I want to know from you. Do you think Bryan Kohberger's strange habits are just quirks, or do they make him seem more dangerous? Would living near someone like that, even for a few weeks, put you on edge? And the big one, in your opinion, is Bryan Kohberger just weird, or is there something darker behind all of this? I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Would those habits creep you out, or do you think they're harmless? Thank you for watching Why I Killed You TV. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the darkest corners of true crime.